each other.
We're at the 22nd conference on retrovirus and opportunistic infections, and we're here with Zeda Rosenberg. My name is Fred Scheich. I'm with IFARA, and we really appreciate you taking the time to come here and spend the time with us. We've been talking on and off again with different subjects over the years, different projects, different research protocols, and there isn't a lot going on with microbicides, vaccines, but there is some, and there's certainly always an interest in, now I guess more in vaginal rings and so forth as maybe a better future for some of them. But tell us a little bit about what jumped out at you, and not even just the high points, but some of the little niches here and there that might be of some value.
Well, I think the first thing that always jumps out at me is that the need for these products, regardless of the results of clinical trials, is still there. And we are seeing so much now about the fact that young women especially are being left behind by all the advances of new technologies and rollout of antiretrovirals, and you see the incidence rates in young women still staying dangerously high. So I think the need for these products is still there, and even though some of the results of the trials that were especially shown today or yesterday, the FACTS study did not show efficacy of tenofovir gel, the need for these products is still so high that we can't kind of sit back and say, oh, well, we'll think of something else later. We need to be thinking of it now and doing it now. And I think the vaginal rings are one such product, and the injectables, and we still shouldn't give up hope on oral prophylaxis in young women. I think we need it all, plus a vaccine.
So what the International Partnership for Microbicides is something that offers funding for research?
We actually do drug development. So I think of ourselves as a nonprofit biotech company. So we thought about what kinds of active drugs are out there that we could use for prevention. You know, we got started 13 years ago now. We had no drugs that we had licenses to, and then within about 4 or 5 years we had licenses for a number of highly potent antiretrovirals, and we thought, what's the best way to deliver these? And we were working on gels, and at the time we were working on gels, we also were looking around at all the other great work that was being done by investigators about the challenges that women had in using gels, and we thought, is there something that a woman could put in place and leave in place and not have to worry about? And
that would be a ring.
That's a ring. Yeah. And rings were out there for hormone replacement for postmenopausal women and for contraception. And we thought, well, can you get these ARVs into a ring? And as importantly, can you get them out of the ring? And dapivirine was the first drug that we tried, and that's the drug that is now in phase 3 trials, dapivirine ring. And we'll know results of efficacy by the end of this year. So it's very exciting.
Women are challenged by the thought of the immediacy, or the moment arrives where they are going to have a sexual encounter that was unexpected. And that's mostly the biggest challenge, I think, for some of the failure of the trials that were where they intended to use it but didn't have the opportunity to use it. A lot of the young women weren't at home. They were living at home. They weren't at home when they were having the sex, but yet their product was. So that's the challenge. So, and also I think that the delivery of it was suboptimally delivered by them, or either low enough dose that the dose was not sufficient in the quantity of the gel to make it actually work, if I'm reading it right.
I think all of the data that has looked at all of the studies that show that women who use the product as consistently as possible, when you looked at a subgroup analysis, did show some protection. So there is a hint that the dose is right. It's just that you need to use it in order to show it.
Enough of it in the right place. So do you have any, so the work that you're doing is on the ring. Is it exclusively on the ring, or is there other things?
Well, we've done work on vaginal films, which we thought could be perhaps
a strip of some kind?
Well, it's I probably shouldn't use trade names, but like those Listerine strips that were
exactly.
Right. So you can actually get something that is reasonably that small, and that could make it easy for women to have with them rather than carrying applicators. So the notion of an on-demand product
And
that
it
perhaps
dissolves,
could be, and it dissolves.
yeah.
So vaginal films, I think, are important. I do think gels will have their place. It just is going to be very difficult to show it. I think rings, I think injectables. I think if we think about contraception, that women at different points in their lives want different approaches, and we can't think of one product for everybody. But what we definitely need to be able to do is show in a clinical trial that they work and they work well. And then once we've got that data, then I think it will be easier to start thinking about other formulations.
Are you looking at anything, or do you work in the field of injectables, or are you looking at what is out there?
We do not. We follow it very
follow
closely.
it very carefully.
Yeah. We actually had in the past worked some with Janssen on TMC 278, and I think the injectables is a wonderful idea. I mean, there are obviously technological challenges with all products, but just because things are challenging doesn't mean
we're talking about something that would be injected and then last for months.
3 months, yeah, 1 to 3 months.
Because it seems to me that I mentioned this to another group of women, the issue of that being the best way for people who their lives are chaotic, and they're in the chaos. There's sometimes almost an assaultive sexual experience, or sexual experience that is not within their control whatsoever. So in which case, this would be probably the only way they could deal with it.
I mean, if you think about contraception, the whole contraceptive field has gone from, pills that you had to use every day to rings that you can use once a month, injectables every 3 months, implants for 3 to 5 years, So, I mean, I think that there are lots of different ways of trying to figure out how to address this problem and it's technology. And these challenges can be solved. They just take a lot of effort and a lot of consistent and committed donor funding. We don't have a big pharma behind us who's putting this in because there's not the market. So these are global public health goods, and we need good donor support. I mean, the field needs donor support, the field of HIV prevention.
Are you would you say you're a not-for-profit or you're a for-profit?
Oh, we are a non-for-profit.
Not-for-profit.
Not-for-profit.
Okay, so this is, I would say, a very unique operation that you've got going, because there's not a lot of that kind of activity going.
Yeah, we're called a product development partnership, and for HIV prevention, there's IAVI that works on AIDS vaccines, there's IPM that works on microbicides, there are PDPs, or these product development partnerships for TB drugs and vaccines, malaria drugs and vaccines. So when you take a disease that can be addressed by a technology for either treatment or prevention, that may not have a market that will incentivize pharma to develop these products. And so you need nonprofits to do it with donor funding.
So donor funding, does that come from corporations or
Some of the PDPs may get some corporations, but most of the funding comes from government agencies. So we, for example, were started by the Rockefeller Foundation, but we've had broad-based European support from the European governments, and still the governments of the UK, Ireland, the Netherlands, Denmark, and Norway are still very strong supporters of IPM. USAID supports us. The Gates Foundation supports us. So we've put together kind of a broad base of support, but it's expensive to do this work, as you well know. And so, raising $100 million for phase 3 trials is not easy.
No. And where are you located?
We're just outside of Washington, D.C., right on the edge.
Bethesda or
Silver Spring, Maryland.
Silver Spring, okay.
Right over the metro.
I remember that's where you were before. I just didn't know if
we're
moved.
Still there. No, we are still there. And and so, we were able to take Dipivirine ring from, we designed the ring in partnership with a group at Queen's University in Belfast. We actually manufactured the first phase 1 and 2 rings in our own little facility. We bought a ring press and literally raised the roof and put in the air systems and got it qualified. So we are the developers of the ring. We're the regulatory sponsors of the ring. And we've pushed it with our partners at the Microbicide Trials Network into these 2 phase 3 trials and all the other studies, and we're preparing for success.
Well,
So-
I hope you get it. And it's
So do
something,
I.
it's something that, like you said, when you first began, this is really a
It's a need. The need has not gone away.
And it's a niche market. It's something that it's specific, for women that are, but yet it's helpful for everyone.
Right, right. I never consider women a niche. They are half the population.
Right, they're half the population. But
And a very important part.
But they are also anything that can be helping a woman. It's half the population.
It helps society.
So
it helps.
Yeah.
It's
a community effort.
It is, and so it's really for public health.
Well, I appreciate your
Sure.
being here and doing this with
Thank you.
us again.
Thank you
and again.
again and again and again. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Zeda.
Okay.